Hello friends, and welcome to another workshop in the series where we talk about GraphQL and ScandiPWA. And today we're about to connect our resolver to a theme. So, how will we be doing this? We got our server time and we got it like this, so you can watch how we did it in this video tutorial. But what should we do with it? Let's display this information in the footer of our website here. So let's replace the footer completely and make it show the server time. Okay, so how to do it? Well, we open the project. I will remind you once again that we are opening the app design frontend ScandiPWA folder. You can watch more on how to configure and where to find what in the theme here. Cool. So now what we are doing is we are opening the VS Code extension. Once again, find the installation instruction in this video, and we are trying to extend the source. Let's create a new component, by the way. Let's, instead of the footer, do something else. So we will create a new component, and let's call it server time. So we'll create a component for our server time. We will have a container which will contain the business logic, but we won't connect to the global state because I believe in our case we don't need everybody else to know that our component will doing something. So to connect with the global state, you need a reason, and this reason should be you either want to get something from it or you want to update the global state with something. In our case, we do not want it, so we skip it, and boom, we created our server time. Very nice, very nice. So here it is, very basic container, very basic component, and also the style. We should change it to import server time.style. Looks pretty much legit. So let's check how it works. Let's check if our application builds at first. It should have no warnings, and we can track how it is building by using the front logs command. And it looks like it's successfully compiled and the application has opened. So no issues at this point. Very good. If we have no issues, then we can proceed with a change of the footer. So let's find out who is a parent of a footer so we can easily replace it. So let's take a look. We have this component, we have a footer, and the footer doesn't seem to have a direct child. So let's see how we can do it. So we have this footer, and we have the footer right here. Oh well, it's located in the after items. Okay, very good, it's in the router. But let's think about it. Do we want to keep the footer component itself? Yes, because we want this footer markup. We just want to completely change the content to it. So let's instead extend the source component and let's look for a footer. We will only extend the class, and that's everything we need. We will leave the styles as they are. Yeah, we will leave the styles as they are. So let's open the footer up. This is not needed. The footer component, back again. So here let's change it to export default footer, and we need to declare a class called footer, and it should extend the source footer. And we will be changing what? Let's see. We will be changing the render methods completely. Very cool. Or we can even ignore the import and create our own footer. So let's do it. We will create our own footer which will extend the pure component, and the pure component can get to us from the import pure component from React. So we'll take the pure component from React. We won't have the copyright. We won't have this. We will just render our own text. So this, let's call it render server time. And here we want to output our own component. So let's do it. We'll do render server time. We will do return. And here we will do the server time. And done. But you can see a little issue. It's imported with the component. We don't need it. We want the server time as it is. So, amazing. Now, let's check it out. Do we have a change in our theme? Well, yes, looks like the footer is gone, but not really gone. The footer is still a footer. Let's check. Yeah, the footer is still a footer, but now it has the server time inside. Very good, very good. So good progress. But instead, one thing we want to keep in mind as well is that the original footer, if we look for it, the original footer, the original footer had the container, so it was instead exported in index.js file. So let's replace the index file as well, so we will immediately export the component. So like this. So now we are exporting the component. Nothing will change. The application won't just connect to the global state. Once again, looks like it's building. Upon the completion, it should work. Let's now go to our server time, and here we have this interesting place, the container. Well, the container for us will execute a single function. It will request the server time upon the mount of this component, and it will it will share this information to the component itself. So from the container will make the request, and the component will handle the changed props. So let's find out, do we have some utilities for it? Of course we do. So if we open the util folder here, we'll find out that there is a request and it has a data container. So the data container is a data container which implements the in-memory cache, and it allows us to make requests pretty easily. So instead of extending pure component, let's change it to data container. Data container. Cool. Let's also switch the order of imports, and let's make a final thing. Let's find out how data container is used, so we can implement it in a similar way. So the first thing we need in data container is we want to declare the wait a second. We want to declare the request fetch data. So we want to implement the fetch data just like it is here. So let's copy the fetch data from the slider widget and implement it in our own way. So we'll make a request server time, and from here we will do this. We will fetch the data, the slider query, and we will set the state after it, or show the notification. As you may see, we will not show the notification if something went wrong. We will fall back to our custom date, so we will do nothing. If let's just not do nothing, let's just console log the error for now. Console log the error. Very cool. So we are now console logging the error, and here we need to write our own query. Well, the good pattern would be to go into queries and to create one. So let's go and do it. We need to create a folder here. We'll call it the query. And from here, we need to create a new file, which we will call the server time dot, let's keep it server time dot query.js. And here we will declare a class called server time with a capital, and this class, sorry, of course this should be with a capital, of course. The server time will export default server time and by doing which, export default new server time. So we're exporting the instance of this class immediately. And here we will make a simple thing like get server time query. And from here, we can get some arguments, but we don't need them. We will just return new field from query. Yeah, this is the correct import. So import field, and the name of this field will be the server time. Let's check the correct naming. The server time. Amazing. So this is what we need to do. Let's validate if we did it correctly. Let's search for some query, for example, the cart query. And yes, it just returns a new field. Cool. So this is what we're doing. So we're just returning a field server time, which we will query later on. And we need to use this function to get it. So let's replace this with server time query. Of course, server time query, auto import, absolutely correct. So let's take it, server time query, and we need to do get server time query, and we will put it up here to the aliases. Good. And we will don't have a props, so we can remove the prop types from here, but we will have a state. So let's declare a state, and in our case, the state will contain the server time. Server time. Amazing. So the server time by default will be new date. Let's just put some random information here, so we'll remember that it's the default data. And we won't have any container or functions or container props. Very good. And here, let's also ask it to ignore the no console. And now the last thing to do is to set the server time. And here to do it, we need to, and let's do it like this. I don't want to map current value, which will return server time to the server time. Instead, let's set the alias in the query. So in the query, let's do set alias, and let's set it to server time. So instead of returning a server time, it will return a server time. What it in reality will do, it will do it like this. The server time will now become the server time. Oops, I'm sorry. Sorry, this is written in a different format. But let's check, will this work? If it will, then cool. Let's see, GraphQL alias. And alias is used. Oh, I'm sorry. So the alias is used like this. So we say server time equals server time. Now it should respond with a proper string. So we can do it like this, and we will. So we'll add alias server time, and now here we'll immediately reuse it to set the state. Very nice. And finally, we need to pass the state to our component. So let's pass the state. And to be more specific, we can, instead of passing the whole state, we can do const server time specifically from state, and we can pass just this argument to props. So we'll have a server time. We can shorten this to such. So we'll return a server time. And finally, from here, we will declare a server time prop, which will be a prop type string, and we'll assume it is required. And here we will say that let's render it here. Let's use the template, and let's say that the current time on server is, and let's put the literal here, the server time. But first we need to take it from props, so we'll take const, we'll take it from props, this props, and this should work fine. Let's see, will it work? Let's see, maybe it's still compiling, but anyway, maybe we'll have some errors. Let's find out. is our request sent at all? And is something displayed in our footer? Well, we see that it's displaying the default value, and what we can also see it's that's really hard to notice. So maybe we should keep the footer content. So let's, in the footer component, let's reference the original one, footer component in the source. It had the render content. Let's check this part out. It had a simple div which had links. Let's try it out. Why not? Why not? No, it should work. It's fine. Don't really know why the style stopped working. Potentially because... Oh, of course. The style stopped working because we are not importing the original styles at all. So now if we want it to work, we need to import the source component footer.style, and now this should work. Now it should give it some style, potentially, if it will compile. Yeah, you can see that now it's normally styled. Very good, but the request is not sent. Well, let's find out why. Is the GraphQL sent? Let's see. This is the product request, the slider request, not our case, the store list, the menu, the countries, and the card data. Well, it seems like the our request is not being sent. Let's check it out. Let's open up the server time container. And let's see. Well, of course, we are not calling the request server time function at all. So when the component will mount, and this is a place where the lifecycle events come in, you might want to request the server time. So we'll do this, request server time. Or you might even want to do it earlier in the constructor. So here you will use props, then you'll call the original with props. And this is how you can call your request right away. So let's try now. Will it show us? Oh, and it does. So as you may see, it's 2020 now. And if I refresh it, it's still 2020. So this is how you can connect your resolver to a frontend. So here we did it using the data container, but you can also do it using no wrappers at all. Let's do it without any wrappers. So let's see what happens underneath the fetch data. In the fetch data, there is an on success and in the fetch data, we're doing the prepare query, and then we do a hash function. So it's basically calling the fetch data of the fetch. But we can implement, the fetch also more natively without the wrapper of data container. So let's get rid of it so we can see how the request is made at all. So now the let's extend the pure component, of course, pure component, and let's get the pure component from the from React, and let's just see how we can implement this function, which is currently undefined, to make the real request and the update the state in the same format. So as we've seen here, first thing we do is we prepare a query from the queries we sent here. So just like there, let's prepare the query, these queries. So let's prepare those queries. Those are our prepared query. Let's see, what can we do with them, and what does the prepare? Well, the prepare makes your queries from objects to strings, and so it transforms them to strings, and also it takes all the variable declarations out of them. So it's basically a preparation of a query to be sent to the server. And the next thing we need to do is we need to execute get. So we want to execute get request, which will be cached, and we have two options. Either we want to execute get and cache it, or we want to execute post. Let's see the difference. So execute get is important from utilities. Here, let's move all the imports up. It stops working. Let's move all the requests up. So like this. And now we have, and instead of this, let's go and the import from the, let's change the language. Something went really wrong here. I'm back changing the language. So let's import it from the component. It should be pretty okay now. So let's organize this imports. Yes, very good. And now we remember we wanted to execute get, and the first argument will be the prepared queries. So let's do a const. Let's do here a const prepared, or let's call them ready query, and we will put the ready query here, and the next argument will be the name of the resolver we want the name, basically. So if we see the request in the network, and if service worker sees a request, it will update us with a specific name. So let's pass this name in. Let's call this server time. And also we need to pass the cache detail, and let's use the month in seconds, which is common default value. Or we can also specify a custom stuff like 100 seconds, but then we will need to provide the explanation because our ESLint says that there must be no magic numbers. But after we executed get, we should handle it. So then, when it's executed, we should set the state. So let's use the command. Let's set the state on success. Then takes two arguments. It can either take on success and on promise resolve, on promise reject. So we'll implement the on promise resolve to this set state, and then set it to the server time. And on error, let's just log the let's just log the error in console. Cool. Should now work, and we can remove this part. It looks beautiful, and let's once again tell our favorite editor to ignore the console log here, and let's see what happened. Oh well, of course, because I made a mistake here, there should be, this is I did it I'm sorry, this should be import of the component like this. So it's server component. I misspelled, sorry. So now it will load. Now let's see if it will continue doing the same stuff it did, then it's all good. If we will see the request being sent while we're waiting for a compilation. So let's open this up. Looks like it's, oh, my browser is lagging, so cool. Let's just open a new window and try to open ScandiPWA. Well, waiting. Let's wait until it finishes doing something. No idea why we exactly are waiting. Now we're not. Very good. So let's see. The server time is still here, but now we made this request without the data container. We're using just a pure component. And this is basically the logic which is hidden inside of the data container. Another thing which we can do is we can change this execute get to execute post. But now remember, we don't need a name anymore. We just need a query, correct? Yeah, we just need a query. So now, instead of now the server time will be requested as the post. So let's see this. This is the post, and it is requested, and the server time is returned. To see the difference, let's add the minutes to the format. So PHP get minutes format. Cool. Now let's go back to our PHP storm and update our format here. Let's see if it still works. It does. We can see that if we request, it will change the seconds. Amazing. So now, if we're doing this using post, let's see what will happen. So it's 2020 03 11 15 48. If we reload it once again, now it's 34. So it kind of works. What if we change it to execute post, execute get like it was? Let's see. Well, first of all, we see it's 15 48 47. Let's remember this. 15 48 54. What? Looks like something is wrong here. Let's make sure we're doing everything correctly. Let's see the network here. It's still the post. Wait a second, it looks like it doesn't compile. Execute post. It should be execute get. I haven't went back enough. So execute get now. And the execute get, remember the time we will see here in a moment. It's the mobile styles without a footer. So you can see that it returns the old value which we had already seen, because it is cached now by Varnish and by service worker. To get rid of the cache, you can execute following command: dc exec varnish adm ban request.url. Now you can provide a pattern, and this should flush all the caches. Now if we reload, then everything will be loading. And as you may see, data started coming, and here's how you can connect with your resolvers. So guys, just to repeat, let's draw it on a board. What we have here is that we have a resolver, and we have multiple options to connect to it: the post request and the get request. Get request will be cached by Varnish. Post request will not be cached. We recommend using post request for all sensitive data. And we recommend using gets for everything which is related to for the data itself. If it's not sensitive, then fall back to get and try to use get. Make sure the TTLs are as expected, and note that the Magento identity tags will work with the get request. So if you request the product or you request something which for sure has identity, then it will appear as well. Then it will appear in the cache. Cool. Very good. Additional thing to say is that the difference between this approach and the data container approach is that it uses in-memory cache. So for container-specific request, if you want to do a request, let me show you. For the data container, which we had extended in the very beginning, and our custom solution, note that data container is more efficient because it also has the cache of the information in the memory. So it basically can cache the request, the generated response, and in memory instead of in service worker. This has a cache on the service worker level. The in-memory cache has a cache on the application level. That's the difference. So the data container will render a little bit faster. So that covers the connection with the resolvers. So you can do it from the container, and also you can do it from the Redux. But we'll talk Redux a little bit later because it's a big topic. And for now, I just want to make sure that you're making your request and business logic, you're putting your business logic into the container, and you're writing your presentation logic into the component. The Redux is for more complex things, like when you want to connect and to the global state of the application. If you want to say that, for example, something has happened and now everything should know about it. So Redux should be used with very big care and very carefully. I'm not recommending to start with it. If you have some logic, please try to condense it within your containers. The Redux is not the best way to do it. So, with that said, I'm coming back to my screen, and I want to thank you guys for watching this tutorial, and I hope it was really good for your knowledge, and see you in the next video. Bye!